Hello, I'm Thomas Iancon from Period 3,
I'm Yousif from Period 2.
and today we'll be talking about Lake Murray and how that is part of the water cycle.
So you might be wondering, what is the water cycle? The water cycle is a part of condensation, infiltration, runoff, evaporation, precipitation, and transpiration. Water cycle is also called the hydrologic cycle, and the water cycle is mainly driven by the sun, which is up there. And the water cycle is made up of two main elements, including hydrogen and oxygen, which is well known as H2O. Water cycle helps regulate Earth's temperature, and chemicals used by humans may impact the water cycle negatively or positively. And changes in climate equals changes in water cycle.
Alright, so 90% of the water in the Earth is in the oceans, and only the rest of that 3% is fresh water. However, 2/3 of that fresh water is stuck in the glaciers, snowfall, and ice caps, so that's water that we can't easily utilize. Only less than 1% of water on the Earth is ready to use for humans through groundwater, surface fresh water, and rain. So how does the water cycle work? Water will move from lakes, oceans, ponds, rivers, and the oceans into the atmosphere through evaporation, which is the conversion of water to its gaseous form, and that's run by the sun. And another way that water enters the atmosphere is through transpiration, which is the release of water vapor by plants through their leaves, as well as the evaporation of water from the surface of organisms such as sweating. Water will then return from the atmosphere back to the ground through precipitation. This is when water vapor condenses and falls as rain or snow. And as it falls, when it rains, this water is taken up by plants, it is used by animals, or it'll flow as runoff into streams, rivers, lakes, ponds, and oceans. And then some of that water will enter into the soil. There it'll collect in the ground in aquifers, which holds groundwater. So this whole cycle just continues on and on. It starts in the oceans, in the surface water, like lakes here at Lake Murray. It evaporates into the atmosphere, which is driven by the sun. It'll condense, where then it'll eventually rain. It'll fall back onto the ground. It'll collect in lakes. It'll collect in the oceans. It'll flow as rivers, and some of it will freeze. It'll fall as snow and it'll freeze, and it'll collect in ice caps. It'll collect as snow in the mountains, and eventually it's a cycle and it keeps continuing.
Our Lorax would like to tell you something.
Yes.
But mine's impatient, so it's going first. So as you can see, there's a whole lake here in which there's a sun up there. And my Lorax is trying to say that the sun heats up water and causes evaporation. The evaporation then goes up to the atmosphere, which has been raining for the past few days, so there are no clouds. But the clouds store water, which it rains and comes back to the ground. And yeah, this is the lake. Thomas's Lorax also wants to tell you something.
Yeah, my Lorax would also like to say something. So why is the water cycle important? You might be thinking, it doesn't really affect us, but it does. And it doesn't just affect us, it affects the whole ecosystem, especially in areas like lakes and oceans. So the water in the water cycle is used by animals, it's used by plants, it's used by the trees behind me, it's used by the ducks living in the water, getting their food there, and it's used by the plants living in the water over there. This is not a separate cycle. This is completely connected, interconnected. Everything uses it, not just humans, but plants and animals as well.